Distant Echoes is a major turning point for me as a filmmaker. Back in 1999 is when we made the film, and it was done for the very first time for me on a computer, and did what's called non-linear editing, which today is the only way to do it, and it's always going to be the only way to do it. People today, nowadays, obviously with YouTube, and everyone's got even free programs that can edit, but in 1999, it wasn't that way at all. Um, I didn't even have a computer that could do the power that could handle the video bit rates and the size of the videos. Eric Smith, who the producer from Contamination 2, he had a computer. We used some money we made on some other projects, bought a computer that could handle video, and I would essentially go to his house every day to edit the movie.
Excuse me?
But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before even doing any editing, Greg and I went out and shot this movie. I actually had looked for quite a bit of people at first to take on the role of Darren Jackson. I forgot his name for a second there. I actually had asked a lot of people from Contamination 2 and from Bloodline, the guy from Bloodline, the psychiatrist, if he'd like to play the part of Darren Jackson. And nobody wanted to do it, couldn't commit or whatever. They didn't. I don't think that many people got the project, this person being all alone in the world. And I don't know, but I looked at Greg here and there, and Greg and I kind of jokingly talked about it, and suddenly just kind of clicked. I suddenly realized he's the perfect average guy who doesn't look any specific way or another to just be this normal guy. And we just kind of agreed to do it. We signed a little contract at a bar one night, and I just said, "Okay, you're the one. You are committed to this movie. It's going to take us, several months to do it." So we set out to do it. Very good.
That rolls pretty well.
I wrote the screenplay with the idea of doing some special effects. I knew I wanted to see if I could take out people and cars out of city scenes, and I knew I wanted to do this scene with these ghost type of imaginary characters being see-through. And I thought, I kind of came up with the way to do it all on my own. I wasn't really done that much of the time, and like I said, having a computer to do editing on. And action. I wonder what's on tonight. Anything on? Who are you? Ready to play cards? You see, back then, before I made this movie, I had to use what's called linear editing, which means you're stuck, editing in order of the movie. So you can't even start editing until you have the first scene done, and from that point on, you can edit and do it linearly. But very limiting. You can't do a good job as an editor. There's no way. It's just no way to work. People today, of course, can't even imagine having to work that way. You just don't do it. So having the freedom to edit non-linearly was just an amazing thing to happen to me. After so many films of horrible ways of editing. Unfortunately, though, even though we did have a wonderful computer at the time for capturing and editing video, it still had a lot of loss. A lot of quality was lost in the capture of the video to the computer. And that's why I had to recapture the whole movie, redo it for this DVD. When you compare how it is now to how it looked on the VHS tape, and all I have of the original edit is VHS tape. So we could never keep the footage, we could never keep the files, and they're just too large. And wouldn't have made any difference. They were captured low quality. Nowadays you can capture that kind of video, even though it's analog video, you can capture it pretty lossless. Only a little bit of degradation, but not that much. So Distant Echoes, for anyone who's seen it before and who now can see it now, will hopefully see quite a big difference. I mean, even the credit sequence was exciting at the time, because I had never been able to use any kind of interesting fonts or text effects. I mean, before it was either a PowerPoint slide or just horrible text font from a typewriter type of machine that you would hook up to these hideous editors. So Greg and I are out there. We're in the city, amongst all these people in cars looking at us, and some of the stuff was pretty embarrassing to do. And I always thought, you know, I really am up for quite a challenge. If I get this footage at home and can't erase the cars and the people like I'm hoping I'm going to be able to do, then this just isn't going to work. So the whole thing was very experimental, and luckily it all came together, and I was able to do the effects. Today they're all pretty easy effects. At the time they were pretty cutting edge for a kid in 1999 with a computer.
I must have gone around like this for a week, I don't know. I kind of lost track of time.
I guess the coolest scene would have to be the card scene. I thought that scene came out really cool, the way people were transparent and stuff. It's kind of funny, I don't know the first thing about 21 or any card game for that matter, so I didn't know what I was doing, but I just wanted to make sure that we knew that he won the game, and everyone got angry about him winning, and then I thought it was a pretty neat thing with the way the radio, you know, batteries start to die and the song slows down, and it's almost like his little fantasies based upon having the music. And when the music's off and the atmosphere's over with, his little fantasy is over and he's alone again. So it was an enthralling scene. I thought it was really fun, and then all of a sudden it turns really sad and somber at the end, and I really liked that, the way that scene came together.
Little does Gregorio know that I got the Jack of Hearts.
When we did this scene at the overpass, you know, busy, Interstate 95, insane. None of the sound there could ever be used. In fact, probably 90% of the entire movie has its sound replaced because there was so much noise, of course, when you're shooting in a city, and you have to make it as if it's totally empty, of course. So Greg was really embarrassed and mortified to be up there with his blue blanket, and people on the freeway looking at us and wondering what in the world is going on up there. But he stayed in character. He did a great job. In fact, Greg really came a long way in this movie compared to if you look at some scenes like in Bloodline or even C2, where he kind of had an air of a smirk about him. A lot of amateur actors, including myself, always have this smirk, and you can't get away from it. And he had that at first.
Where's Kim, you son of a bitch?
And then in this movie, it's just gone. I mean, he just looks very serious. He really did a good job. When I look at the raw footage, I can see him getting into character and in and out of character between takes, and he really did own the role. He owned it in a big way that I didn't expect, and I think he did a really good job. Very sad role, and he really captured the essence of it.
I can't believe I helped edit that damn movie. I don't get any credits. I helped edit that movie.
Oh boy, good going.
There goes my drink.
Oh, honey, are you okay?
Oh, yeah. Come on!
Okay, that was nice. Come on.
So I'm not falling.
No.
Nah, you don't need to. You're already standing up. Ready? Go ahead.
Come on, man! Unbelievable. Oh, shit!
No, I don't like it. Forget it.
Okay.
About this bottle.
Okay.
And it was
I wouldn't be that pissed
No?
in real life.
In real life?
I'd
Ready?
just be like, oh.
Here we go. Okay, action on.
Que carajo, really?
The very first thing we did after I finished the script and decided to make the movie was Leilani and I would just drive all over the place and just shoot some stuff at the car. and just hope that there would be no cars there a couple times. And in a place like Connecticut, that's not that easy to do, in Norwalk and Stamford. But lo and behold, a handful of shots finally would work, but there was nobody there whatsoever, and we would use those shots for all these scenes of Greg driving around. The beach scene, I really loved the ending, the way it was filmed and acted, and just the whole mood of the piece with his narration and everything. I thought it was a really strong scene, and I'm really glad that we ended it the way we did. A lot of people have told me over the years that the hands should be female hands, as if it's some kind of, Adam and Eve starting over kind of scenario, but that really wasn't the movie. I mean, if I had a girl there, if Leilani had been there, I probably would have done a take with her hands and then figure out later which way to go. But the whole thing is it's just a fantasy. I mean, I didn't give it a whole lot of thought about as far as what's happening. This person comes along and finds the note, and is the Earth now repopulating or whatever? It wasn't so much of a literal story that you could really dissect and figure out why is he alone and why is there a person now. All it is a fantasy about a guy who wished for something he shouldn't have wished for. He learned his lesson. He isn't going to be such a bitter, ungrateful person anymore. And now that he's learned his lesson, people are being put back on the earth. I mean, I didn't want to make it into a religious kind of movie about maybe God's taking away the people and teaching him a lesson so he can appreciate what he's got or anything like that. It was just a fantasy about being careful what you wish for and being grateful for what you have and don't complain so much. We came up with some interesting ways of shooting some of the scenes in this movie. A couple scenes we did in reverse where Greg would come up to the camera, and so I could have his eyes right there, and then he would just back up so we could reverse it later. Some of those shots, like with the car driving up to the camera, are just simply safer to do. If you want the shot to end with that front of the car just right at the camera, rather than having Greg drive up and nearly hit it or knock it over, we start off close and then back up and reverse it. So we did that for a couple different shots. Another reason, I guess there's so many dissolves in the movie because I was a little dissolve happy. This is the first time ever I could have a dissolve in my movie. And even and same with slow motion, first time ever trying to use slow motion. So the movie has a really big montage scene of slow motion and dissolves and just stuff I couldn't do before that I was so excited to be able to finally do. So that's how we did a lot of that. And there was this shot that never came out very good where we're having this camera come down to Greg's face and spinning and all that. It never looked like it helped. I wish we had someone filming us doing that because it was pretty funny. I just had the camera, big, huge, heavy camera on the end of a rope, and I'm just lowering the camera down to his face. Okay?
You mean you want me to come in and lay down while it's rolling?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't remember if the shot goes up or I think I actually reversed it in the actual movie, but we shot it going down towards him. So yeah, a lot of creative shooting in this movie. A lot of fun to do things like that.
Here we go. Take 2 of the crane shot. Are you ready?
Yeah. The success and the whole experience of making Distant Echoes in 1999, being able to shoot and edit on a computer and have all that control, it really is and was the reason and the impetus to then do the next film I did, which is The Ethereal Plane. So, I jumped right into doing a feature after this because I really felt empowered to do so with all this newfound, ability to edit on a computer and have all the control and make a big feature movie. So this movie was the precursor to The Ethereal Plane. All the stuff I learned how to do with wiping out people from the shot or cars and stuff and doing the ghost effects, all that stuff came into play when I made The Ethereal Plane. So it was a fantastic segue into making a feature. Another and more movies that had visual effects and different ways of shooting that you couldn't do before. Distant Echoes was the first film I ever made that I actually submitted to a film festival and got accepted to a film festival. It screened at this big New York film festival, which wasn't a very good one and still isn't to this day, I don't think. It's very expensive to enter your film, and I think you can't. I don't think you can miss if you have something that's halfway decent. They're going to show it. They're going to take your money. But it was exciting to be able to have it in a film festival in a big theater. Me, Greg, and myself and Leilani traveled to New York and went to the film festival, and we watched the film before it and probably the one after it, and then that was it. We left, but it was exciting. It only had about 20 people in the audience. It wasn't. It was that was disappointing. But it really was a thrill because it had a great sound system and it was big on the screen, and it was really fun to have the movie in a film festival.
Just look at me.
Ready? Go ahead.
Okay, come on. Go ahead.
Shut the door.
And we're off.
Talk a minute.
We're off. So you're going to, what are you doing? You're going to play some softball, right?
Right.
And you're gonna, I hope you're gonna win.
Yeah.
You think so? I think you're a good player. You got your mitt and you got your baseball bat, and you got Clark over here looking at us like we're a bunch of Tweety birds.